Siddur Snippets is generously sponsored by the Saka family and is sponsored as well by Elliot and Avram Foreman. We're grateful to them all. We're up to the Bracha of Al Tzadikim. We concluded our introduction. We gave the historical background and precedent. Shibbolei Aleket tells us this Bracha Al Tzadikim and its conclusion, Mishanu Miftach Al Tzadikim, affirming that Hashem is true to His word, stands by and uplifts the righteous, was uttered by the Malachim, the angels, when they saw the promise to Yaakov come true, that Yosef closed Yaakov's eyes. And in fact, indeed, Hashem holds His promise to the tzaddikim. The Kolbo writes, Kolbo points out, this bracha includes every letter of the Aleph Beis. Whenever we see an allusion, a reference to the complete Aleph Beis, the entire alphabet, it means to tell us from Aleph to Saf, from the beginning to the end, it is complete. Why? Because the righteous fulfill the entire Torah from Aleph to Taf. The righteous, upon whom we rely, we lean, and all good and bracha comes in our world, they complete the fulfillment. Torah, the Aleph Bey was for Torah. So let's begin. Ala tzadikim v'ala chasidim. We have 5 categories of people we are davening for here. We begin with tzadikim. We're going to have to define each one. And there are several interpretations of each, and it's important. We say this bracha 3 times a day. We should know who we're thinking about, who we're talking about. I think it's incredibly helpful if, in fact, for these 5 categories, we have an image. I don't mean necessarily a particular person, although that's helpful, but a category of people. Who are the tzaddikim that we're davening for? Who are the chasidim that we're davening for? Who are the ziknei Amcha Beis Yisrael? Who are the elders? Who are the pleitas sofreim? The remnants of the sofreim, those who count. Sofrim, the people who sell mezuzahs and sifrei Torah. Who are we talking about? Gerei HaTzedek. We're talking about Gerim. We're talking about converts. Do you know and do you realize that every day you say a bracha 3 times a day, in which you daven for the well-being, for the protection, for the security, for the safety, with admiration and reverence for the converts of the Jewish people, the converts in our midst? It's incredible. People don't think about it. So who are these 5 categories? Who should we be thinking about? What kind of an image should we have? And why are we invoking them? So we start with the tzaddikim and the chasidim. Are we going in ascending order or descending order? Who's greater? The tzaddik or the chassid? Who's greater? Because the answer to that will determine, are we going in ascending or in descending order? And as you can imagine, this is an age-old debate. And of course, based on our very definitions. What's the definition of a tzaddik? Of the righteous. We can translate the words. Tzaddik is righteous, and chassid is Shtreimel and Peis. No. That is a modern title of a group of people, a movement that adopted that term, but the term long precedes the movement. So the word chasidim means, a chassid is pious. Good. So did that help? Now we have who's greater, a righteous person or a pious person? What is righteous and what is pious? We didn't really help ourselves there. We could put this to a vote, but I'm not sure that will help. So what are the tzaddikim? So one interpretation is tzaddikim are meticulous in performing Hashem's mitzvos, His expectations of them. People understand that tzaddikim are those who've never sinned. Tzaddikim are those who've never, in fact, even made a mistake. Never even made a mistake. Avudraham writes, Gedolam mikulam shalochatu me'olam. Tzaddikim are those who are born righteous, who are born perfect, who have no temptation, who never indulged in impulse, who never did anything wrong, never did any mistake. You grow up with any tzaddikim? They're very obnoxious and annoying. They're not, because they're tzaddikim, but they make us feel about ourselves. You know, the tzaddik is the one who doesn't struggle, doesn't have to overcome, didn't fall and get up, doesn't have to bounce back. Shalochatu me'olam. They're tzaddik, they're righteous. They never struggled. Who's the chassid? The chassid is the individual who maybe made a mistake. According to some, the Pri Megadim, the Sharei Tshuva, the chassid is the Baal Tshuva. The chassid is the one who struggles, is imperfect, who fell down and had to get back up, who fell back and had to move forward. The chassid is the one who struggles, who engages in the struggle. So who's greater? The tzaddik, the perfect, the one who has no impulse, doesn't struggle, doesn't have temptation, is sort of inclined to do the right thing, the goody two-shoes, or the chassid, the one who is not perfect, has made mistakes, but is the one who has to nevertheless overcome them, who has to bounce back from them, who has to go forward with them. Which one is greater? And this is a great debate. We won't do justice to it right now, not tonight or even in Siddur Snippets altogether. It deserves much more treatment. The Rambam talks about who's greater. According to some, the Tolner Rebbe, based on a Sfas Emes, Rav Aaron Soloveitchik in his book on Chumash also talks about that this was the debate between none other than Yosef and Yehuda. Yosef and Yehuda was not a case of sibling rivalry, but in fact, this was the debate, the question of who would be the monarch, who should distinguish themselves to be the leader of Klal Yisrael, which is the paradigm. What do we strive for? Who do we honor? Who do we elevate? The tzaddik, the perfect, or the chassid, the one who has to overcome? This was the debate. You see this with Yehuda. Yosef, we'll start with Yosef. Yosef couldn't endure the imperfections of his brothers. He's a tattletale. He turns them into the father. He says these are their struggles. They're imperfect. Avram and Achai, others, because Yosef represents and strives for a certain perfection, a certain tzidkus, a certain holiness, a certain being separated. A bilti Hashem levado. Yosef's a person who's a loner. He's described, the Torah refers to Yosef as Nazir Echav. Nazir means separate and apart and holy, who's distinguished me'echav from his brothers. Sfas Emes says, he brings from his grandfather, that the philosophy of Yehuda was the opposite. Not to separate, not to isolate, not to be apart, not to protect and preserve and strive for a perfect righteousness, but Yehuda was the chassid. Yehuda was the bracha that Moshe gave, that v'el amav tevienu. V'el amav tevienu is to bring it to the people, to bring it down to the everyman, to take those who struggle, who aren't perfect, who live in this world, and to elevate them nonetheless. Interestingly, we'll have to pick up with this next time, Sfas Emes alludes to, he heard from his grandfather, that this debate between Yosef and Yehuda was a disagreement among the founders and the originators, the pioneers of the entire Hasidic movement. The Tolner Rebbe expands on that and says, who is he referring to? This was the debate between Kotzk and Ger. It's not exactly Siddur snippets, it's more people of the book, but Kotzk Rebbe, the Ish Emes, he had an intolerance for imperfection. He would rather have quality over quantity. It was about the elite. It was about tzaddikim. Whereas Ger was about Hasidim. It was about El Amav Tevienu, to bring it down to the people and to spread it and to be able to reach quantity even if it lacked in quality. This is the debate of Yehuda and Yosef. This is the debate of tzaddikim and Hasidim. And which one is greater we'll continue with next time.